Going live. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Let's see. Is it happening? Testing, testing. Ah, it's live. This is wonderful. For a while, it didn't show that I have started the stream. The OBS studio has been running already, and I'm looking. I have a window up there. Let me share my window with you there, and that window was telling me that it's just about to start. So I just had to hit refresh. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Where your time zone is. For Ray of the coast of North Wales, it must be now pretty late in the evening. And for Nick, it's about middle of the day, right, Nick? And and he's asking, is that Kondo Ongaku a prize for watching? I would say yes, but sadly, not the actual unit, just the photograph of the unit. So, this is going pretty wide here. Just going picture in a picture and ever more pictures. I think I'm just going to turn this off because this is getting like really confusing here. Okay, so hopefully I now get to see what is the lag. So I have already clicked on it about 10 seconds ago. So there's about a 10-second lag between me talking and the stream. So is it live, still live, or delayed stream? Let's see. So actually Ray was asking about how to do with the system, how to go on about when you have hearing issues, and I think that will be the first thing we are going to talk about today. But first, let's just wait for the team to check in. And Expedition 18 is saying, hi Janos, you and your cats are doing well. And I said the cats are doing swellingly, they are doing awesome. I'm not doing that much well. I have some kidney issues, so I be frequently hydrating and probably have to take a few bathroom breaks during the session today. So it will be like, I don't know what I will do, like put on something on YouTube to watch for you for a minute while I'm, I just take care of my kidneys. So that's not that much fun. Also, Nelly is now traveling. She left for a conference in DC, and then when she's there, she's now in Europe, so taking a little trip. So and then she'll be back. But otherwise, we are doing great. So now I'm home alone with the cats. So so that's why we are not doing the big projects now. So I thought I would get to relax a little bit and just go easy on the home remodeling while she's gone. So that's why the return of the live streams, and hopefully I can also post more videos than usual, and I hope you have been seeing that. And yep, Nick is confirming lag is about 8-10 seconds. And hello Red Eye. Hi, Boring Vinyl Stories also says hello. He has an awesome YouTube channel. So thank you so much for watching. Let's see. Nick is saying Cully and Gray. That's Nick's Lion Garden. They're saying hello to Machi and Kintaro. And they're asked for a hunting play date. So actually, right now they are still. Where are they? Oh, Kintaro is out in the garden, but I suspect Machi is still in the kitchen, and she's trying to check it out if I'm going to the kitchen, and then just ask for food. because that's that's what happens. If you are in a kitchen, it has to be food for the cat. So once much he gives up on her, I want second, third, fourth for breakfast, then I can grab them and just have them stream, because what I noticed that for work I'm doing a bunch of Zoom meetings and nearly two, and whenever you do a Zoom meeting, the cats are always around. So I think Zoom was and these live streams were just the cat's way of getting us humans to connect them to each other, because that's what you always see, that the Zoom meeting, there's a cat, and then the person whom you are zooming with, at least one of them in the team also happens to have a cat, and then or the cat happens to have a human, because that's how they see us. There's the servant who he cleans my litter box, gives me food, shelter, and then also connects me with my other fellows far away. And Expedition 18 also has tinnitus from vertigo, constant 24-hour ringing. Ay. And I really, if it's that bad, have you had that? If it's something new, I would really have it checked out as soon as possible, because when you have something that's serious, then medical help would be really, really important. And the longer we wait, the less can be helped about it. And if it's just happening on a regular basis, then still I would go with my doctor's recommendation. And on top of that, what could help the ears is vitamin C, because but actually vitamin C helps your auditory system to regenerate. It will not really work on the tinnitus itself, but if your auditory neurons are recovered, then that might be helping tinnitus too. For me, what I noticed for my tinnitus, which has been caused by loud noises at workplace exposure, the AC system, and all the freezers and big equipment making those heavy noises, plus the commuting on the highway. For me, what started to make a difference is just wearing ear protection. And where is it? So now I don't have it with me. It's in my car, and I have one at work too. And also I just keep like cotton balls with me and just plug them in whenever I need. It makes me look a little bit stupid, especially if we are out on an evening like a month ago. With a few of my coworkers, we went out to Blue Note, Hawaii, for a live concert, and after a few minutes, my ears were total. The sound was atrocious. I can't say anything else. Why? Because the high frequencies, they EQ'd about 30 dB higher than the mid-range and the bass. It was my ears were bleeding, and it was very interesting because I had a company of 6, and my boss, he was totally okay with it. Actually, he's Cornelia's boss. For him, he was a total comfort and enjoyed the sound tremendously. And 3 more in the party were totally okay. And then I had one of my coworkers, and she looked like she was being murdered. So it affects different people differently. And once I plugged in my ears, that leveled out about that much from the high frequencies. So now the sound became level and I could enjoy the show. But at the price of finishing, by the time I finished half of the appetizers, my ears were totally busted, and they hurt for a couple of days after that. So It's just like one more thing, like what is a balanced sound or a good sound can be absolutely wildly different for us based on the oh, I see, the intermittent strange creaking sound. I was going to ask about that. So that strange sound is the lens autofocusing. So I was going to ask about that. Is it being noticeable? Because I also have noise filtering in the OBS studio, so it should have cut the noise out. And this is I'm using now. This is a new lens, and its creaking is much quieter. It focus is way quieter than my old lens, and I thought I can get away with this newer lens plus the denoising, so that we can't hear the krr, 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 krr. It should sound something like that when it's focusing. And if that's the case, I'm going to plug in my lapel microphone. So actually, in the case of my old lens, that focusing sound was so bad that even when I had a lapel mic in, I could still hear the krr, 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 even the lapel mic, which is much more directional and rejects the background noise, is quite wow. It was still picking, you know. So I guess that we just can't go. So now let's go in. Okay. And now I think you can hear me again, and hopefully the krr 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 it's quieter than it was before. But yes, that that thing sounds really like a chair creaking, and hopefully now it's better. Yes. Oh, Nils is saying, I will get a hydrogen inhalation machine. I hope it will also help to regenerate my hearing. It's supposed to be a stronger antioxidant than vitamin C. And I have not heard about that inhalation machine yet. And before anyone asks anything more, so I am not an auditory specialist physician. I am not a licensed MD. I'm a research doctor working with cancer, so I don't really know about what's going on in that field and what are the actual therapies and cures and devices used there. What I am sharing related to the hearing is my experiences, what I have experienced on myself and with my friends, that what we are doing, what they were doing, what helped, and that sounds really interesting. Oh, thank you, Nick. So Nick is saying it's much better. So it seems that the lapel microphone is really needed, and it's just so hilarious. These technical issues. There's always something like about 2 weeks ago I commented, finally now I have a new computer, everything is good, and then I was doing my videos and it turned out that the battery in my lapel microphone has died, and it just like was that's what was it was recording. So I bought like 30 pairs of batteries, so now the thing can just go on, and probably I just be mindful about when is it draining or not. So sorry that I'm not looking at the camera directly. I'm looking here. That's what the computer screen is telling me what's going on with the streaming, and here I can read the comments. So I have this 2 monitors set up, because what I realized is that with a single monitor I can't stream. You cannot do it. So what I've been doing before was that I was streaming from the cell phone and I was using the laptop as the secondary one, because you need one device to stream, and if it's your phone, that works perfectly. You don't need anything else really. But to follow the comments, and also you need to see if the stream is really live, because Just that you are recording something is not a guarantee that it's going through the ether. Who came up with the ether thing? Anyway, it's through the internet, and so really these two monitor thing that really works. Let's see. What else? Janos, have you worked with tank bank full range drivers? No, I have not. I have heard about people using them, and they are really happy with it. So I can relay that, but I have not directly compared them. So I don't know how they would compare, let's say, against Fostex or Cube Audio or any of the other ones. Oh, the other mic had a better sound, but it was okay. So my other mic was actually the internal microphone of the camera, and I think that was it was picking up the lens sound because it's right. The lens is directly between the camera microphone and me. So I think now this is the compromise. Yeah, kind of sad. Hey CC, good morning or good afternoon. Is maple a good material for speaker cabinets? Yes, it's really nice. Plywood or hardwood. If you can get hardwood and nice, consistent, like good quality hardwood, which is like not soggy but really nice and dry and strong, then I would recommend. So it really depends on your area, how's the supply in your neighborhood, what you can get access, and just get the one which is of better quality. If you can get of high quality hardwood maple, I would recommend that over the plywood. And Gio, where can I get a good set of building plans for Voigt pipe? And I have one video, and I have there shared the measurements for my Voigt pipe, and I also shared a video of the what's that called, Johannesburg Voigt pipes, and I think he shows the entire process how he builds his tank band Voigt pipes, and what I can recommend is just watching that video, and maybe we can watch that together. Let's see that. Let me just search for that video. And then he shows, oh yeah, Voigt pipes made in Joburg. Let me just share the screen. So there it is, and it shows how he builds his pipes. My pipes that I built have a little different ads. Thank you. Let's just get the sound muted. We don't want any of that. Jeez, skip ads. I'm sorry about that. So basically you need a big sheet, and then it will end up like that. And what we need to do is have the sides, one side, the other side, and then a front panel, and we don't see it yet, but a back panel as well. And here you see his back panels, and what he's doing is he cut out these for the binding post holders. I very strongly recommend against using those plastic binding post contraptions. Just get like a quality binding post, drill a hole and put it in directly through the wood, and don't add that nasty resonating plastic. It's not helping the sound. It's not a make and break difference, it's nothing that huge. But when you are going to upgrade your system and optimize the cabling, the amplification, everything, it is going to make a difference. And once you have that hole in there, it's a kind of hard to fill it up afterwards and undo the damage. So that's one thing. So what he did here is that he got a big piece of plywood, and you see he marked it. So this is one side, this is for the sides, and he marked it that there's a line so that it's cut diagonally, and these will be the two sides. And then the other half, he can just like make like two straight lines, one each for the back and one for the front. And then you cut them to the proper length or the proper height. And then you have most of the panels, plus you need a little bit of a panel for the bottom here, but that will be, so the piece that will go for the front will be shorter than the piece going for the back, so you are going to have a leftover piece that you can use for the bottom piece of the pipe. And in the top there's nothing because the front and the back meet together. So that's just like an overview what we need for that. So this is really the simplest, I think the simplest cabinet that you can build, and because it has one less side than a six-sided cabinet. Of course there is the added complexity that we have the tapering. Oh, the cats are, they're playing. So they have the tapering, and you have to meet the front panel and the back panel. So there you have to shave off a little bit from the back panel so that they, so that they can meet, because you know how is it? Maybe let's use my phone as the back panel. So as the back panel meets up the front, you see you have to shave off the corner, and so that's the only complication about it. And why is this triangle shape? It's so that there is no standing waves inside the cabinet, because we do not have a rectangular space where the sound waves get stuck and they just resonate, amplify. It's like a continuous tapering, so there's no single frequency to where the cabinet is tuned, but the frequencies are continuously changing and shifting, so there's no standing wave propagation inside the cabinet. So let's just continue. Maybe I'm just jumping forward in the video. You will also need, so first, cut out the pieces and then put them together, so the wall is the side is attached to the front. What he is doing here is he made the front bigger and the side smaller. I did it the opposite way. So for me the sides are the big ones, and they are cradling the front. And you can do really either way. I think mechanically it is more stable when you have strong sides and they are holding up your front, but the difference is not big, and I have not done A/B testing, so I have not built another cabinet to see how it is. And primarily for a very simple reason is that I was not using plywood for this, I was using hardwood, and what they sell at Home Depot as 8-inch hardwood, that was 8-inch size pine. That's what I used for the front panel, and it's not wide enough to attach it from the front. And for the sides I used what was it, 10-inch or 12-inch hardwood, and that went for the side. And of course you would say, János, you could have used the sides for the front as well, but I really didn't want to do that. I was thinking that it's mechanically more stable to have the front and back meet inside to form a connection, and then sandwich the two in with the side panels. to me that somehow seems a little bit mechanically more stable. And once you put the cabinet together, he only put the front side and one side together, and then he made the cut. The way I did it is I put on the whole thing together, the front side, back side, and the sides, have that ready, and after that I cut the hole for the driver. And I think probably if you already have one side attached to it, it's already really helpful. And that's because once you cut the hole out, these sides here, this is really weak. And if it's just the whole panel and that is holding it together, it can crack. Or I think it probably will not crack, but you have still the potential to damage your board if it's not held securely by the sidewall, especially because well, I'm not going to go into further into that. Just make the sides first, then cut. But then just be aware that it will be extremely loud. When I cut, I really could hear the effect of the cabinet. It was insanely loud, so it amplified the sound of the jigsaw tremendously. So as you see here, I think he probably did it with a router, and also you see this bit here is routered as well. If you can do that, that's really, really good. I really recommend routering that part so that the driver, the rim of the driver will sit in and will be level with the plane of your cabinet. And this is something that should be done with every single loudspeaker driver and cabinet. That should be the level 0 to build any loudspeaker cabinet, because if it's sticking up, then it's going to affect the mid-range frequencies. You are going to hear notice a problem in the mid-range if the edge is sticking out, because that's what people, I mean loudspeaker designers, the companies, they just want to, they just don't pay attention to it. There's a couple who do, and then you can notice that they have better mid-range than those who don't, provided everything else is done right as well. But certainly the Voigt pipes are extremely sensitive for that. If you have it sticking out, not good. So just have it laying flat, and also depending on the profile of the surround and the driver itself, it's probably even better idea to mount it from the inside. However, here comes the big however. With the Voigt pipe, you are really limited by the depth of your cabinet between front and back. So most likely you will not have a choice to mount it from the inside, because the magnet structure will be so for example, with my cube audio driver, I just have barely enough clearance. I think I have maybe like this much, like a little bit more than a 1/4 inch between the rear wall and the magnet of the driver. And so that's one thing. So but if you cannot router it, a jigsaw is perfect. So you can cut it with a jigsaw. It won't be as nice, but no one will see it. The driver will be there. It's not really material. What would be material and important is that you shave off the inside, so that the inside, it doesn't look like just like a straight, like maybe let me just, so imagine this is our front panel. So this is the depth of the front panel, and so this is where your driver cone is sitting. Then this corner you should shave it off, so this is not rectangular, so we don't have this strong rectangular shape here. Shave it off, and that's because the sound waves don't just propagate to the outside, they propagate to the inside. And when you have this thing there, that's forming a horn on the inside of the driver. So with these parallel walls, even if there's just an inch thick or half-inch thick, it's still a couple dBs of horn effect in the smack middle of the mid-range frequencies, and we want to get rid of that. So that's why round it out. It doesn't have to be scientific or whatever. Just get rid of the hard edges. If you just use a file or something like that, just get it a little bit non-straight. And the same goes for the front as well. So when you mount the drivers in the rear, then the front part of the baffle, you don't want to keep it straight because that's adding a conical horn, and that's the worst thing you can do to any sound, because like horn effect is generally good because it uses the air to and just the laws of physics to amplify the sound, to give you more efficiency, more sensitivity, better dynamic range, and you don't have to just rely on. It's kind of like giving a help to your amplifier, and so there you also need to shave it off to make it a little round. You don't need to make like a perfect horn. That would be like a Tectrix horn, like a miniature half-inch deep Tectrix horn. That would be the best, but just keep it, just router it or sand it or something easy. It doesn't have to be very advanced or far-fetched. So this is how it looks like when it's put together, the whole thing. And he puts in wooden pegs, and you can do that too, like drill it and put these wooden pieces. That would be absolutely perfect. Or what you can also do, what I did, put in brass screws. Initially I put in just some regular zinc-plated screws, and then when I changed them to stainless steel, it didn't improve really the sound, and then I changed them to brass screws, and that made a really big difference. And the difference will come up in the imaging, and also with regarding what type of screws you use, and also on resonant frequencies, so like a nastiness in the mid-range that can be caused if you use like iron or steel screws, anything other than copper or brass. And you can use the variable different grades, kinds of these copper or brass. And why I'm saying to use that? Well, number one, it's been my experience, and not just mine, everyone's experience, that when you use brass or copper, those are the metals that are used in a lot of music instruments, and I like to transfer only that kind of technology which is used in cabinet making, instrument making. Plus my second observation that it is the one that sounds good. It doesn't have resonant frequencies, doesn't add those nasty frequencies like other metals. And I think the reason why, for example, stainless steel adds those resonant frequencies is because it transmits the sound at a different speed, a very different speed than how wood transmits sound. And the good thing, a huge benefit about brass is that it transmits about the sound about the same speed as wood transmits the sound. So that's why you can mix wood with brass. And of course you can go this method, just use these pegs, if that's what they are called. I'm not sure if that's the actual woodworking language to use with, go with it, but and then also glue them together. Sadly, I have glued my pipes together and screwed them. I didn't have clamps, so initially when I built it way before I met my mentor. I built it after like browsing the internet for hundreds and hundreds of hours and looking for cabinet designs and people's ideas, what they are saying, and my way of getting around without clamps was to, you know, just glue all the boards and then use the screws as clamps. And then I thought, okay, I can take out the screws after that, but I noticed that when you take out the screws, it sounds really bad because you are left with a bunch of hollow holes in your speaker cabinet, and that will resonate at a high, it will add a nasty high frequency resonance. And of course you would say, okay, I can fill it up with glue, but no. Can you fill it up with glue and make absolutely sure that you don't leave any air pockets there? I was not really confident enough of my woodworking skills, and I don't know if it's possible at all. I really suspect that there are going to be air pockets left, and that's when you are hunting for plywood. The number one thing you should be looking for is that there are no air pockets in the plywood, because that will make the nasty sound. Same thing when you use hardwood. Don't create air pockets. Don't degrade your hardwood down to mediocre plywood grade. And let's go around. So that's what he does. So if you do that, you can do it. Just add, you know, just some wood glue. I would recommend Elmer's wood glue, and then hammer it in, and then wipe it off, and then you are done. But I would say you are not done. You have to clamp the whole thing together as well, just to make sure that it's really held down together, because it's not the glue that's important and helps, but the amount of pressure. So if you don't apply pressure on the glued surfaces, then the connection will be really mediocre. And if you apply really high pressure, then the bond will be as strong as the wood itself. So basically the wooden surfaces will meld together, almost like form a hard connection, as if there's no difference between them. However, once you do that, you cannot open up your pipe anymore, and you cannot do further tweaks inside. And I really wish I haven't glued them together, because one thing that you can do is to, well, I will not go into this, because that just will confuse you if you want to build your first pipe. So you see that's where the basket will go in, and he routed it so that it can sit inside. And as you see, it's like really deep. This is the tank band, but others are deep as well, so we really need the clearance. And when you see here this pipe, you see he put the driver lower than halfway, quite a bit lower, and that's because I think that they want to be able to fit the driver into the cabinet. So ultimately, when you choose a driver for your Voigt pipe, before you cut the hole, make sure that the driver has enough clearance on the inside, because when you look here, the taller you go, the narrower the pipe becomes, so you are going to have problem with bigger driver baskets. And I think here they also add dampening inside the cabinet, and that takes away an additional layer of an additional clearance. So he had to go even lower. So let's see, where were we? And I would say, I think here he just placed it in there as an example. When you do it, just you can put it there to make sure it fits, but then take it away, and do not have the driver there while you are working on it, clamping on it. It will just damage the driver. Don't do that. So when you see here, he put them together so that the back is not on them yet. I would say, like, put the whole thing together and clamp it together so it dries, because if it dries and they just go a little bit out of alignment, then that will introduce a stress into the structure of the cabinet. And when you notice that if you have a music instrument, there's a thing called tuning, and the tuning is tuned by stress, by putting stress on the instruments. And
and then the same goes here. If one goes out of alignment different than the other, there's different amount of stress in one cabinet than another cabinet, they will have different tone, different sound, and you don't want that. You want them to be stereo speakers, like having the same quality of tone and not different qualities of tone. Of course, if it ends up like being different quality of tone, it's not the end of the world. If you guys know of John Hogan, he was a legendary amplifier builder, and he on purpose mismatched the output transformers on his power amplifier. So he built monoblocks, and one had a different kind of output transformer than the other unit, and people loved it. And those who heard it said, wow, these Hogan amps are quite something. And why is that? That's because for most people, our rooms are not balanced anyway. So even for me, like on one side I have here the garden, you can see the glass behind me. So that whole side is glass. And of course I have curtains to avoid extra reflection, so when I notice, I can just draw the curtains in so I don't have the nastiness hitting from the glass. But on the other side, the room is open to the kitchen, to the hallway, and there it's open to upstairs, so there's like a hole in the ceiling where the stairs go up. So it's a very unbalanced environment. And if you have one speaker or one speaker amplifier combo is a little different from the other, by finding out which will work better for which side, you can use that as part of the equation to get a balanced sound in the middle. So if you build your pipe in a way that one side is a little different than the other, or you build your amp that way, don't despair. Because if you have a regular living situation, it even can work a little bit to your advantage. But that's not, I'm not saying that mess up your project on purpose, don't do that. But if it happens, then you don't need to chuck it in the bin, it will be just fine. However, if you have like a dedicated room where you have nothing in the room, just your stereo gear, and then you also are building up your panels and everything to make like a perfect studio-like environment to reproduce music. In that case, I would really highly recommend to have just the two components, the two sides of the stereo as closely matched as possible, because you are going to hear it as a cleaning up in the image and much more focused reproduction. But once your room is unbalanced, then you have different options to work with. Let's see. So now he is showing, oops, maybe, you know what? Let me just move my face there. I just have to, okay, yes, it wasn't so easy. I needed a couple of clicks to get there. So you see here that that's the side of the panel, and here we are seeing the front. So now for the front, he needs to cut it out with this U shape for the port. You see, some people call it a port, but it's not a port, it's a mouth. It's the mouth of the pipe. And I don't call it a port because it doesn't behave like a port. The ports in sealed enclosures, they are essentially like little horns that behave very differently than like a large acoustical horn, because they are just Helmholtz resonators really, and they tune the sound, they tune the output of the port, so they let through only a narrow range of frequencies across the port. And the mouth of the Voigt pipe lets through all the frequencies, so it does not have a port cutoff. So it doesn't work like a port, and that's why I don't like to call it as a port. So nowadays I don't know the official nomenclature for it. I guess if people started calling it a port, now everyone calls it a port, but technically it does not behave as a port. It is the pipe's mouth. It's the opening. I don't know if you are an organ builder, what do you call it? We should call it something like that here, because it's really the analogy of an organ pipe. And what else? I don't see the rest of the plants here because my camera is in front of the screen, so I don't see that bit, but I think it shows the, yeah, I can see on my OBS, it shows the backside with the cutout for the RCAs. And let's just go move along. So now you see the mouth from the front, and you see he has this piece in the bottom, and the piece looks like, do I see it right? That it goes out, extends on the sides. I would have it extend front and back, because your pipe is like standing up, and as the driver moves back and forth, it will create a movement back and forth. So you want to stabilize the front and rear axis. On the side, it will not move on the side. At least if it moves a little bit, maybe due to an earthquake, maybe, or like hurricane, then it's not due to the acoustic output of the driver, and it will not affect the sound. And by the way, if you are worried about hurricane and earthquakes, my Voigt pipe survived the big earthquake that we had here in Hawaii, which was like a magnitude 6 earthquake, and then they did not topple over. I could not keep my balance, I toppled over, but my pipes stood straight, both of them, during a magnitude 6 earthquake. So if you are wondering about the stability of the pipes, that they're going to topple over, even the magnitude 6 earthquake did not topple over. The wall of my house, the firewall cracked. I could see outside. There was like a crack that appeared. I could peek out, and I could see there's a gecko on the outside. I can see the palm tree of the neighbor, but the pipes did not topple. So, and also, of course, for that, what I did is actually just the lip in the front, extending through a little bit, and in the back I did not extend it further, just for the front, an inch or so. So you don't have to go really crazy about beefing up the base. This is really nice. So see a little bit, I think he's showing that he's shaving. Oh, shaving off the dowels. Okay, you see these panels are really big. What we can get here in the US are either 4 by 8, 4 feet by 8 feet, or you can get the Baltic birch plywood, which is imported from Europe, that's 5 feet by 10 feet. So these panels will be really, really huge. So even if I put it on the back of my Mazda truck, they still, hang out, and I have to leave the tailgate open to bring them home. So just be prepared that you will need transportation to get the material. If you just use hardwood, and then you can just maybe like a 6 feet by 8 inches wide hardwood planks, then you can put them in your passenger car, and just pull down the rear seat, and then you can stick it through. So when I build the pipes, I just put them in my Volvo, regular, 4-seat Volvo, and they fit in. I didn't need a truck. If you want to make it from plywood, you will need a truck too. So this might be actually the main decision factor for a lot of people, like which material to do, that can I transport it to home or not. And just a picture. And here, this is what I don't like to do, and don't recommend to do, is when you have plywood. So put something in to split the layers. So you see here, these are the layers. So the plywood is put together with thin layers of wood, like lots of them sitting on top of each other. They are glued, and they put several tons of pressure in the gluing process, and that's how it's glued together. And it's extremely strong when you are going against the layers. But when you go in between the layers, you will crack the layers, and they will separate, and it will weaken the structure. So that's why even if building from plywood, what I recommend is just having 2 sides plywood, 2 sides hardwood, because in the hardwood you can put in a screw from any direction, but if you're using plywood, one of them is going to be against the layers, and that's not good. So you see, he used the router to router the insides, and that will give you a really nice clean job. If you don't have a router, like doing this, the beveling part might not be really possible, especially if you don't have good woodworking skills. But if you do, you already have a router anyway. So if you don't have those skills, then just don't worry about it. Just put it from the top on, and when you upgrade your skills, then take out the driver later on, router it, put in inside, and you will notice it as an improvement in imaging and better balance for the mid-range. What else do we have here? Yes, noise protection, do that. It's important. When I was young, I thought, oh, I have great hearing, and it's manly, it's macho if you don't have any ear protection. No, it's going to shave away years from your music listening and the ability to keep your ears if you don't use ear protection during using loud instruments, loud tools. And here he is putting in a net for the filling. I would say that this is what the original design, I think it's called the world's second best speaker. That was, he made like a 2-hour-long video on the extremely detailed construction of the pipe, and this pipe is the reconstruction of that video, what he did on that channel. I also had that linked on my channel and talked about it, and it's extremely good video. It has lots of really good basics about not just Voigt pipes, about loudspeakers, how they work, what they do. But I think like putting in, especially, I don't know what kind of net it is. If it's a metal net, I would gravely urge against using metal net inside. That's not going to work well with any kind of high resolution system. Putting in anything magnetic will affect your imaging. And it won't be a day and night thing, and your system is not up there yet, you won't even notice, but if your system is there, it will make a difference, a noticeable difference. Let's see, now I'm in trouble because I don't see the screen anymore because the camera is there. So now I can jump only to the end product and just guess where we are. So I think what's there in the video is he's putting in, I think, dampening and everything. I would say don't go to town with dampening. It really deadens the sound and turns the speaker into a regular frost ender, which might not be such a bad idea for some people, but it will totally, because we are not used to energetic sound and dynamic live sound that has the effect like live instruments have when it's not recorded. So when you put extra dampening on it, it will turn, the difference will be that you will often experience it as an improvement. And wow, now the sound is better. I tried out dampening too, and putting in more filling, extra dampening, and my initial reaction was, whoa, the sound is so much better. And then a couple of weeks later, I realized, like, what's going on? I'm not even listening to music anymore. What on earth is going on? And I took out all that extra dampening, and holy crap, this is now music. That was what I was missing before, that all that dampening pushed the sound from a live music to a showroom sound, which we just got addicted. Kind of, I think what's going on is that for most audio gear and most audio sound, it's like audio porn. And it has got not very little to do what real life sound works like, how it is, and it's like sculpted, certain angle. It's kind of like a visit to the gynecologist office. It's not something natural, it's not human, it is artificial, it's fake. And we are pushing our sound to the fake, and after a while, when you hear like one Bauer Wilkins after the other, you believe that this is the normal thing. So I think now I'm going to switch back to normal view, and I'm going to also check on the chats. Let's see here, I'm got stuck here. Where are my chats? Hey, there I am. Okay, I got my chats back. Ah, let's see. Where? Ooh, that's a long line of chats. Let's just catch up. We had that. Could you speak on using threaded inserts with your mahogany frame so the speaker can be disassembled when moving? I think I kind of covered that, but yes, you can do that. It will work with mahogany as well. And what? Okay, and so that's also another idea, to be able to have the cabinet, to make it like, to be able to disassemble it will help you with moving, and I can attest to it that it's harder to move the assembled Voigt pipe than just the wood that I built them from. I had to move my pipes a couple of times, and yes, it's definitely was a little bit more challenging than just the pipes and than just the planks themselves. And for the mahogany, I would also recommend the brass screws. Assuming frequency extension is functional within the room, can you overdo it in terms of displacement? In relationship to what? I would need like displacement of the driver cone, because I think if it is able to have like a lot of cone movement, that can be beneficial. But for single drivers, it's not always translating well. If it has a large displacement or the sound is good, it's like you really have to look at the individual drivers. However, if I think, or you might be asking about the frequency. If the frequency extension is too much in the room or getting too much high frequencies, what I noticed about that in relationship to Voigt pipe is the marriage between amplifier and loudspeaker. That has been the most critical issue for me. That is what will make or break a Voigt pipe, and not really the frequency extension capability of the driver itself, or whether it's like too much highs or not enough highs. It's really the marriage of that, and also how well the pipes like your room, and how free are you able to set them up in a room. And in my previous videos I talked about it's really hard to place the Voigt pipes correctly, but don't be afraid about that, because Voigt pipes don't set up any harder than regular speakers. So like if you set up your Voigt pipes, go on about setting them up as you would go with regular floor standards. However, when you optimize regular floor standards, if you 100% dial them in, then you will have a little gain compared to almost perfectly dialing them in. But with the Voigt pipe, if you dial them in perfectly, you will have an orbital, life-changing, out of this world difference compared to near perfect setup. So I myself, I spent about a year or more than a year like toying around with their placement almost daily. Took me a year to find out that, and once suddenly it's just, what this imaging, what's this sound, this is crazy, this is absolutely out of this world. And yeah, it took me over a year how to learn that, how to find it. And I would say don't worry about it, because once you develop this skill, you will be able to translate it to any loudspeaker. So the Voigt pipes are just, I think, the most sensitive indicator loudspeakers ever built as far as imaging and tonality goes. And they, even if you don't want to stay with Voigt pipes, maybe you just think about them as a learning experience in your life. That's how I thought of them initially, that it will be a learning experience. And I wanted to start from ground zero with the most simple cabinet possible, and no crossover, just absolute simplicity. And I thought that it will be very limited, because it was not, you know, when they say, oh, the frequency extension doesn't go down to 20 hertz, then I thought that, oh, it will be like seriously challenged, seriously compromised in the low end, and whatever. But I was just really pleasantly surprised. And the only thing, or I would say the biggest lesson I learned from Voigt pipes, is that once you build a good quality Voigt pipe, which and that size, like about that 6 feet 2 meters approximate height, 8-inch driver, or maybe 10-inch, then that will be capable to function as a real full range loudspeaker for real music listening. And I mean listening to music material of unamplified instruments. For example, I love classical music, both chamber music and orchestra, and it is capable to give me a full-scale orchestra sound that I don't find it lacking compared to going to the symphony and listening to the musicians playing there. And when I went home after that, listened to my Voigt pipes, and I did not find it lacking compared to the live experience. Now, how one would compare that against an audio porn equipment that does all kind of alterations to the sound to make it more showy? Yes, it's not making the sound showy. It's keeping it simple, but keeping it real. And if that's your purpose, it's really, really good. It won't be able to reach as high SPLs as real life. So for example, jazz club comparison, I was listening to Tartos, my friend, play with his jazz band at the Dragon Upstairs here in downtown Honolulu in Chinatown. And after that I went home and I put on Jazz at the Pawn Shop on my Voigt pipes and my single-handed amp. And the experience was, I was just stunned, because it was the same as me listening to my friend live. And when I was at his concert, I was really in my audiophile mode, looking especially for all the cues. So I was consciously listening to his music. Of course, after a while I tuned out and was just enjoying it. But whenever I caught myself, I went back to oral experience. I even walked around and just like, how does it sound when I'm not just sitting in one spot, but walking around, how it sounds in different parts of the room. And I did the same thing at home. And actually, guess what? I like the home performance, how it sounded a little better, because it played a couple dB quieter. And for me, when I'm in a jazz club, it's a little too loud. So I just always end up plugging a little cotton balls in my ears, because the highs are just too much. And when you play it a little, like 3 to 5 dB quieter, then that's just perfect. And I can listen to jazz at the pawn shop and with the pipes for any period of time that I want. If actually I don't listen to any period of time, because after a while it still gets like, okay, that's enough loud music. But certainly I can listen to it like the whole jazz at the pawn shop without discomfort. While if it was a live jazz club, my ears would be toast by the end of the hour without the help of cotton balls. So that reminds me that I have not addressed the Ray's original comment about tinnitus and hearing problems. So I started on that. The first thing would be to give a break to the ears, to decrease the tinnitus. And sometimes for me and for a lot of those whom I know about who had tinnitus and whom I recommended this. You have tinnitus, try it out. And the feedback I got, if they try it out, it helped them. It won't make the tinnitus go away for good, but it will help. And that help is just that extra antioxidants and like vitamin C, vitamin E, or other things that you can think about. But the most important is protection, hearing protection, cotton balls or earmuffs. So when you go to places which are loud, there use ear protection. And because tinnitus always forms as a reaction to loud sounds. So when you are sitting somewhere and there's like a 13 kilohertz component in the sound that is much louder than the rest of what you are hearing, then your brain will start producing a 13 kilohertz sound wave of the opposite phase to cancel it out. So actually it will not produce the sound wave, but it will produce the impression of a sound wave, like an attenuation. So it will try to cancel it out internally so that your higher processing centers, the higher processing centers of the brain, are not focusing on that 13 kilohertz note. And when the 13 kilohertz stops, then you will suddenly start hearing that opposite phase 13 kilohertz, and that's what tinnitus is. And how life is that our brain tries to do it every single time when you have a continuous offending frequency offending your auditory system. And then, oh my goodness. So I'm listening, I'm having a look here at the live stream, and it's completely back. It's showing like 15 minutes ago state. My goodness, this is not working too well. I think let me just reload it. If it catches up real life. Yes, now it caught up real life. Wow, this was really weird. So that's why it's a good idea to check what's going on. I just got a little scared that it's gone off sync really badly. So basically we have all of these frequencies. Like if you work in your office space and you have your AC, building AC, then there will be some high frequency components and a lot of low frequency components, and your ear will start filtering out one by one. And when you go home and you have the tinnitus, the ringing in your ear, it will be all of these frequencies, the combination of them. Once I did an exercise when it was ringing really badly, I was just focusing on them, on the ringing one by one, and yes, you can identify the individual frequencies that are ringing and that are aggregating as the tinnitus. And if you want an exercise how to identify these frequencies, how to learn that, is do a hearing test. So what it is that it's not a true hearing test, but just put on earphones and listen to sine wave, a test tone like whoop, like going from lowest frequencies to highest frequencies, and just change the tone, make it so that it doesn't change very fast. It changes relatively slow, and it allows you to catch up with it. And once you will hear it, is that as it starts rising, there will be some of, don't make it too loud, just make it so that you can barely hear it. And then you will notice that there will be parts where you don't hear it at all. And it's rising, and then you don't hear it. Rising, you hear it, you don't hear it. And those spots where you don't hear it, that's where the tinnitus is. That's where your ear is ringing, and your ear is canceling out those frequencies. And then you can play around and just write it down. What were those frequencies where you had ringing in the ear? And do this a couple of times, and maybe every couple of months, repeat this test. And then you will be able to learn more and more about identifying different frequencies and what's happening to your ears. And once you protect your ears when you have these offending frequencies, then your brain will produce less and less of these internal opposite phase cancellation effects. And it might take a very long time, because once, even if you are not exposed to this for most part of the day, but when you go there and you are exposed for a few hours, your brain will maintain this mode of canceling it the whole time, because it's really detrimental, really harmful for you. And you just need to be cautious that each time there is such a noise exposure to your ear at those frequencies, it's mitigated. So that's number one. So before we start adding the extra tweeter to our speakers to bring up the level so I can hear it to compensate for my hearing loss, make sure that your ears are rested enough to be able to handle the extra frequencies, the extra level of high frequencies. So first, rest. So before you do anything athletic, anything energetic and vigorous, that is not just true for gymnastics, but for listening as well, make sure that you are well rested. If you are already tired, drained, and which here translates to like going to work, you sit in a loud office with loud AC, or maybe you work with loud tools the whole day, and then you commute back, loud noise of the road from the car, and then you want to listen, and you can't hear the high frequencies because your ears are ringing, and then you crank up the EQ, so now you hear the highs. But that's the worst thing you could ever do to your hearing, because your ears are already tired. They need a break, and they don't need cranking it. So that's one thing. If you are in that condition, that you listen, that you work, or you get exposed to loud noises, number one, protect your ears. And if you already have ear protection, then just use more. So if you have professional earmuffs, then maybe just add cotton balls or extra like plugins to plug in more, to just cut down the exposure as much as you can. And once your ears are more rested, then you can listen to audio. And but first, if you are in that state that you've been exposed to a lot of noise, or you are currently exposed to a lot of noise, then I would say, like, first just go on about for a period of not even turning on your stereo at home. Everything you can, turn the volume down. TV, turn the volume way down. Generally people listen to TV way louder than needed. Turn the volume way down. Even if it doesn't sound good, just turn it down to give a break to your ears. And once your ears are doing better, then you can turn the volume up. But if you turn the volume up really loud, then just maybe put on a timer and no more than half an hour loud. If your ears are already tired, don't push them over, because it will keel over after a while. Sorry. Okay, so, and another thing, what people miss usually is that the noise level, the noise floor in the room often what I notice is that, especially when you live in a city, in a very busy environment, then the background noises are super duper loud. You know, the traffic outside and whatnot. You need to put soundproofing in the room to cut out from the noises from the outside. Because if there's like plus 20 dB noise floor coming from the outside, it means that there's 20 dB less dynamic range available for you, and if you want to hear that 20 dB, you have to crank it 20 dB higher. Now, if you are already tired from work, your ears are already tired, now adding that 20 dB will be enough to lose whatever you have of your hearing in the next couple decades. So I think that's the number one thing before we try to fix our speakers or amps or EQ it. Number one, first we have to be adopt habits to protect our ears when we are there. And number one, if it's been persistent, seek medical aid. Or if you feel it's acute, there's something really painful happening, go and see a doctor right away, go to the ER. And there might be something else happening that you might need urgent treatment for. But if it's like something that your ears have been exposed long-term damage, then it's, I would say, like giving a rest for the ears. And then number two, making sure that at home where you listen, the noise floor is low. That will make all of the difference. Even if your hearing is not that good, after a time, it will start to adapt. The number one thing about ears and hearing and human beings is that we are not constant, but we constantly adapt. Our life is constant change, and our hearing is constant change either. And I can speak of myself and seeing the example of my mentor. Yes, change also includes that our hearing gets worse. And normally it's attributed to aging, but what I notice is that even the age-attributed worsening of male hearing is mainly due to very poor habits as far as it goes to protecting our ears. So when working with loud tools, wear the heaviest protection possible. Make sure that during commuting you are not exposed to the full road noise, maybe cotton balls, maybe earmuffs, anything at work. Protect your hearing. And when you notice that your hearing is tired, don't crank up the volume. And if you say that, okay, I need to crank up the volume because otherwise the stereo doesn't sound good, then you have two choices. One, you crank up the volume, and then next year it will sound even less good because you have butchered your hearing. Or number two, you can change your stereo system and look for something that sounds good when you don't have to crank it up. And so either you adapt, meaning you are changing your habits, and maybe it also will include to change your preferences. So if you love to listen to extremely loud music, you have to change that. If you don't, then it goes with the territory that with extremely loud music, there will come the decrease of the hearing skills or hearing abilities. And I think that's kind of the summary about it. Now, going back, so red eye. Oh, wait. I was missing a whole bunch of, let's go way back here. Where was I? Tangman, Voigt pipe, yes. Pans. Oh, actually, I don't know if I can put like links. Probably I can put in comments after the live session is done. If not, then I will make a video of circling back to my Voigt pipe plans. But I think I recently made a video about sharing about where you can find my Voigt pipe plans. So I think I just periodically need to like put out the links for that. A good place to start, if you just go to my channel's homepage and go to the Voigt pipe list. I have like playlists, and none of them is the Voigt pipe playlist, and that's like, I think it's a reasonable resource for Voigt pipes. Yes, we had that. Okay, with you preferring the Altec driver pointing upwards, do you think any full range driver pointing upwards would have similar effect? Absolutely. Oh wait, full range driver. I didn't even read the comment, but I know you have asked it already in a comment before, and I not to the same extent. I think the compression drivers have this ability that they can project like very focused. It's like a laser beam, and once you project a laser beam and it scatters all over, it will form like a natural spread, natural halo, and then fill in the room. When we use like a regular tweeter or regular driver and it spreads out, works to some degree, but not as good, not as good. Yeah, so it can be tried, and it will work, but not to same effect. And going to the twin of this question, can you use any other compression driver to fire up? So that was something that I looked into it, because there is the conventional wisdom that says you can't use any compression driver like that, and I tried mine and I could use it. So that's it works without a horn. Sorry. So you can't use a compression driver without a horn. That's the conventional wisdom. And now I tried mine and I can use it without a horn. Of course, for those who don't know about the story, you have to match your crossover with the bare compression driver. It needs a very different crossover compared, so you cannot just take away your horn and it won't work. So you have to optimize it, very different thing. But the good news is that it requires a way simpler crossover than putting on a full-blown horn. And that's I think a big improvement, that you have much less complexity in the electronic area and much less to go wrong by adding lower quality parts there. Or maybe you could say, okay, I just pepper it with dual stuff, and yeah, power for you. And but even with that, you are going to have to toy around to find out how it is the best with the horn. And without the horn, it's much simpler. What I noticed, just plain second order crossover. I spent time optimizing the capacitance, optimizing the actual place. Originally, I crossed it over at 1.4 kilohertz, and then I started lowering the crossover frequencies, and that's how I ended up at 500 hertz. It's much more natural sound. But with Eduard tried it out. Eduard Brockman tried it out with the DH1 alpha compression driver. That's also a large format compression driver that can also handle without a horn. But I tried out the small Yamaha compression driver. They tried to work it with Craig, and sadly that didn't work. So it looks like small format compression drivers can't handle without a horn. Large format ones can handle, and so really I would mostly recommend these large format compression drivers firing up, or maybe if you have a tweeter like a regular two-way, then I would say have the woofer fire at you, and then you can put the tweeter firing up. But then you'll have to figure it out. It's not a clear-cut recipe that you build a speaker and it will work in every room. It will have to be, the level of the tweeter will have to be tuned to every room, because it's going to be dispersed from your ceiling, and your ceiling and your room will define what the leveling and what the crossing over needs to be between your main driver. Tech Ingredients has a video on building Voigt pipes. Yes, Red Eye, that's the video that I was referring to. His channel is called Tech Ingredients. That very long video that he has on Voigt pipes. It's like an hour or 2 hours long. It has like 2 million views. It's like ridiculous. It's like kind of like has more views than all of the audiophile videos put together, right? But it's a great video. He really deserves that. And although he chose a couple options, building options and paths that is different from mine, but I can still recommend it because you can learn from it, and it's absolutely wonderful. And it's my joke that he calls it the world's second best speakers, and you can turn it into the world's first best speakers. I mean, not the world's, but your. You can change them from the world's second best to your best speaker by building them with hardwood, and don't go to town with dampening on the inside. Just lose it. Just let the wood sing naturally. Josh is asking, is there any alternative cheaper than 15-inch driver that you can recommend for a two-way similar to yours? I don't know any. I would need recommendation. I would say, I don't know. It has to be tried. I think there's like a myriad of them, and you just go for something that is something nice. It will not be nearly as good as the Altec or JBL, but it will be great. It will be great, but very different. It's an alternative, and I think you will be happy with it. But myself, I have not really played around with any of them. But as a side note, I can add that it will work. It will be fantastic, but it will be not nearly as good as an Altec or JBL. Could the full range 12-inch Zenith be used in a Voigt pipe? Oh, bingo, there you go. A 12-inch Zenith or the 15-inch Zenith or 18-inch Zenith, you can, those would be a cheap alternative for the Voice of Lancelot. Yes, I would really recommend that. It won't have that capacity as the Altec, so it won't be as efficient, and it won't have bass like going down to the subsonics, but it will have awesome tone. And Zenith, these are really, you have to look out and hunt for them, and find them, you know, a used pair somewhere. But if you can, like a 12, 15, 18-inch, these three varieties, and they will work extremely well. One thing though is just that they have much more fragile cones than the Altec, so you have to just worry about where you get it from, and just make sure that the cones are in a good shape, because what happened to mine, I have a pair of 18-inch ones, and actually I shipped those ones like 10 years ago to Hungary, because I thought, okay, I'm going to build speakers of them in Hungary, so when I visit, I can listen to really awesome stereo. And then Nelly was saying, like 2 years ago when she traveled back, she checked on them and she said that the cones crumbled to crumbs, that they fell apart. So that's it. So that really depends on. But I will be shortly making videos how you can prevent that. So if you have a pair of old cones, what can you do to rejuvenate them, to make them live longer? You can also do this actually to the Altec cones as well, but they are by default designed to last like 50 years, and regular cones are designed to last 10 years. So extending the lifespan of a Zenith or others is much more urgent than thinking about the Altecs, which will probably, like mines, they look like brand new drivers, and they're like 50, 60 plus years old. And so the Zenith would be really awesome. I would go for the big Zenith for Voice of Lancelot, not for Voigt pipe, because for the Voigt pipe, I noticed that once you go like 8 inches is the optimal, and 8 to 10 inches. because once you go beyond that, you will have problem with mating the high frequencies, and you are going to have a gap between your high frequency and your mid range when the driver cone becomes too big. And so I would say like stop at 10 inches max. And also to have that pipe effect, the most pronounced, the sweet spot is the 8 inches. And I would recommend the 10 inches if you have maybe a larger room and you need like higher volumes. Or if you would like to experiment like extending the base deeper, then you can try 10 inches. But the sweet spot I found is 8 inches. If you go like smaller, like 6 inches pipes, then you will sacrifice a lot, about an octave in the low extension, but you are going to gain extra speed. But also, as we know, that speed in the sound is also a function of if you have less bottom end, your brain automatically thinks of it that the sound is faster. So when we add bass, it is becoming a much harder to create sound that comes like immediately. The bass is always like chugging along, kind of like getting lost compared to the high frequencies. And when we are cutting the bass off, it sounds like it's getting faster and faster. But that's kind of like one part an optical illusion that the brain doesn't have to process the deep sounds, but also that when we get the deep sounds there, that's also taxing the amplifier and taxing the loudspeakers as well. And that's where the Altec will be extremely powerful, because the bass with Altecs is so effortless that it feels like it's not taxing your amps at all. So the speed at which the bass comes at you is the speed of the high energy. It's absolutely unreal. I never heard this happen anywhere else except in real life. And once you hear it, like, what's going on? And usually that's the reaction when people first hear the voice of the theater. The Altec voice of the theater sounds like an Altec A5, A4, A2 or A1. Is that it's just the speed of the bass is just phenomenal, and you can have other systems that extend lower, but the speed is not there. And now what I did with mine is that I modified it, so I'm using the same drivers as the voice of the theater, the Voigt series uses, but I am trading a little bit of the efficiency and cabinet size to produce an extra octave compared to what the Voigt series does. And that even that extra octave is produced at that incredible lightning speed. So yes, these drivers are capable of that. And actually their self-resonant frequency, the FS, is about 25-26 hertz, and that's like really deep. And that also is an indicator that these drivers are really comfy of going really low. Okay, is a 17 feet room long enough for a Voigt pipe? Yes, it's enough. It's plenty enough. My room will be 12 by 17.6 by 7.5. I would say that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. That's the best size room for a Voigt pipe. you got the optimal room for the pipe, and just that's perfect. Yes, thank you for confirming. Hey Nick, good to see you. And I'm on my ticket. Whoa! Altec horns, that's awesome. Boring Vinyl Stories just commented that he's picking up Altec horns. And so here I'm using them in this operation, that I'm using them full range, but don't be put off by that. So if you think that you have horns or you want to hear them with horns, they are absolutely astonishing with horns either. So So don't second guess. If you already have them with the horns, go with them. And also in these systems, I mean the commercial systems like Voice of the Theater systems and Altec Valencia, etc., they crossovers are built and made for the horns. So there you cannot just take off the horn and have fun with it. You have to completely redesign the crossover, both the low pass and high pass, from scratch, and how the speakers are balanced. And you need really to be at an expert level to tackle that. And apart from that, I really love the sound of the A5 and Altec Valencias with their horns. And yes, they can be modified, the crossovers fine-tuned, so that you can listen to them even in a near field session. So one of the best Altec Valencia, actually the best Altec Valencia implementation I heard was when, with a good friend of mine, Tom Choi of Audiolab, he modified his pair of Altec Valencias that he had in his store, and he set them up so that the chair, the listening chair, is like an arm's reach away from the horn. So if you do this, you can put your head in the horn almost. And guess what? It had an astonishing sound, extremely good. And he just hooked it up to a really cheap amplifier, forget what it was, and streamed from his laptop using a USB DAC. Yeah, plugged in a cheap, like $100 USB DAC, and from his playlist, from the phone, controlled from the phone, through a cheap amp. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I didn't want to, say it out loud there, but just before, when I listened to that, I came from his big room where we had the Wilson Chronosonic, the big one, driven by Dan D'Agostino, and in like a you put one and then an endless series of zeros. That's how many dollars it had, and you would say, oh, but what if it wasn't set up properly? Mr. Wilson set it up personally, so it was probably one of the best Wilson experiences you can have, is when he sets it up personally. And these were set up, and yeah, it was absolutely sterile. It was a tremendous show. It was really huge. But right after listening to that, we walked there, and he had me sit down. It turns on, what? It's like, okay, there's no comparison between the two. If you want, like, which one do you like? This, the Valencia. It was like, it made like anything he put on the playlist was a fabulous experience. And with the Wilsons, you had to play those 5 CDs that were specially designed for them to play. Yeah, it made a great show, but if whatever you want to listen to, okay, like, look behind me. I have to cover my eyes or do something so to make it focus. Okay. So now it focuses. So you see those thousands of records there? Maybe I can play like 3 of them on the Wilson system. And it's kind of fun. Okay, you buy 3 LPs, you listen. Okay, all right. But what about these records that I want, that I have, that I love? What shall I do with them? Make a bonfire or what? It doesn't even burn. The paper burns, but the vinyl doesn't really burn. So what can I do? Just maybe go over to the little room near field Valencias and just play all of them, like one after the other, and have tears in your eyes the whole way around. So anyway, I think that was triggered by Boring Vinyl Stories, his comment on the horns, the 1505B horns. Yeah, you'll have that set up for you soon. Oh, John, of course. Sorry, John. I'm just now when I'm trying to read the the comments and trying to run the video, making sure that it's it's focusing where it should be, it's still streaming, etc. Now I'm just really bad with focusing on like, I know, no, John, it's you, John. It's just like my brain is kind of like hard to translate between the running chat comments and all of these things. Yeah. Yeah, so I probably should get the cats to multitask for me. would make a really much more fair and reasonable listening experience. But I said I used Craig Pocket Jig whole journey to build my Voigt pipe. I love mine. Yes, I can second the Craig. The Craig jig. It's really fantastic. I also had first the small Craig, and then I loved it so much I got the big Craig. So when you look in the back, now it's, so you see now in the corner, there's my, there's the turntable. The turntable rack, I built it with the Craig. And I can recommend because it builds really strong. Oh, now I have really strong hard light in here. And now let me see. Because I think I have very strong, let's just, I'm trying to get less light. Okay, no, I think now I went overboard. I know what happened, because I turned it darker, and at the same time the light went out from the outside. The sun just got shaded over. So how about that? Oh, it's still not enough light. Anyway, I think this is not working that much. I would probably need hey, I'm here. Okay, it's not that. So I would need an assistant to toy around and find the exact lights, or someone to pull in the shades, the curtains. Probably that would be even better. Where was I? So the Craig Pocket Jig, it's really awesome. And what else? Yes, it's fantastic. So first I just had the small one, and then I got the big Craig jig set, which is even easier. So there you just put in the plank, crank it down, woo, that's it. And then you put in the screws. It's really fantastic. So Nick is saying today I just clicked on something and it doesn't want to scroll down. Okay. I was at a Dutch audio show. Fun fact, a quite affordable design was the best of the show. Simple compression driver in a small horn combined with a 12-inch paper woofer. And actually I can second that. Greg, one of my audio mentors, is Greg He. And actually, he was also the mentor of the late Bruce Edgar, Dr. Bruce Edgar. I think some of you or most of you know about him. If you know about horns, I think you must know about him. He was the only, I mean, he was, because he passed away sadly, he was the only, well, not the only, but the most renowned contemporary horn builder. And I have several friends who have his speakers, and really, I think if you want to hear good speakers, if you can find the late Dr. Bruce Edgar's horns, I mean the speakers that he built, the horn speakers, they're just like phenomenal, wonderful, and they are built for music. And so circling back to Greg, he built a small speakers that was like that, like a 12-inch paper woofer, small horn, and it's a small project. I think what was it? It was something that's going around on the internet as like as kind of like a test or try it out, like, and it's like they have the design available, and I think it's kind of like a dare, like how to build a horn speaker on the lowest budget, and it's like a really cheap horn, really cheap compression driver, and probably like the cheapest 12-inch woofer you can get, and put it in a cabinet with the cheapest possible crossover parts, and that's how he built it. And I think he used Baltic birch plywood for the cabinet material, and we listened to them, and he was using his 2A3 monoblocks to drive them, and it was just gorgeous. We could listen to anything. We were spinning records, playing CDs, all kinds of genres, every material, everything played fabulously. And yes, it didn't have that kind of prowess as the voice of Lancelot has, so the bass didn't reach down to below the ground, it didn't have as much energy, it didn't have as much dynamics, it wasn't like as encompassing, it was not a reality transformer to that extent, that but it was fantastic. So if someone says that that's the system, János, that the only system you can have, then I would say, yeah, but you can have it till the end of your days, I would say, bring it on. It's perfect. And I can recommend it to everyone. I think I made a video on it a while ago, but that's my response to everything. I made a video on it, so it's kind of like, now I sound like a broken record, but that's true. I made a video of everything already. And there's a bunch of stuff I don't even recall what I made a video of, but luckily I recorded this, and I forgot which woofer he used, and that's why I was calling a blank in there what woofer I could recommend. But it was a wonderful blend, and he used the cheapest plastic horn for it. And I think he really treated the backside of the horn, so it's not a flimsy resonant plastic, but I think it was like a $5 horn. So it is ridiculous. Anyway, so it is. I can second Nick Tube's comment that I also had an experience like that when I went to an audio show, and the best sounding system was the cheapest. Actually, at that show where I went to, and the best sounding system was the Ongaku, was the full audio note system, and the second best system was also the Otto Ongaku room, and then the third best was the cheapest system, which sported the cheapest Bauer Wilkins speakers. And then when I went like a high level Bauer Wilkins that was already not as good sounding as the cheapest Bauer Wilkins, and I was stepping up, they were just kind of confusing. Some were okay, but not yet to the musicality and enjoyability of the cheapest Bauer Wilkins, and I just had to wait for those two audio notes to really improve on what that cheapest system did. But when I listened to that, I would have been really happy to get that Bauer Wilkins system. Yeah, but it's curious. So nowadays that this is what we get, is that often there's no connection in the prices and how good it sounds. Many of the times it's a reflection on the lack of the skills of the people who set it up. They don't know how to set it up, and always the best sound is from the room where the person playing the system knows how to set up the system. And actually my recommendation about that, like going to showrooms and picking up what you like, how it sounds, if you found something you like the sound of, have that person set it up for you, who set up the showroom. and don't just like, oh, I heard like an amp there or a deck that I really loved, and you just purchase the deck and it won't work. No, have that person who set up the system set it up for you, because they will find, okay, in your room this and that will work, but you will need a different component, or you will need like, okay, it will not work with Van den Hulk cables, you will need let's say Kimber cables to make it work, or maybe you will need Cardass cables, or it won't work with Cardass or something like that. So there's a lot going on, and especially like a showroom setup, because there you have to set up fast. You don't have time, long time. Like if you go in a regular showroom, like an audio showroom, then the room acoustics, the room treatments have been really carefully set up over a course of several months. Often more money put in the room treatments than the stereo you are listening to. So you have there like an excellent groundwork that you won't get in an audio showroom, which are usually just cheap hotel rooms with terrible acoustics. And there, when you have an optimal setup, even there they take. So when the customers goes home, that's when an audio salesman's life begins. That's when they start like setting up the speakers that you want to audition, and they spend hours and hours fine-tuning the placement, trying out different amps, cables. So when there's someone and you go to a store and you said, oh, I want to hear this and that speaker, and they say, okay, I will set it up for you. So that's what it means, that when they close the store, they will fiddle with it a long time to figure out how the best it sounds. And if you are lucky, then this salesman will show the same dedication when he brings, if you decide to buy those speakers or whatnot, and bring it home, and hopefully he will set it up with the same care as he did in his showroom, and then you have a good salesman, and he is worth about the same money as you spend on the audio equipment, or even more. And if you go on eBay and buy the components separately, like 30-50% cheaper, and you think you saved a lot of money, no, you wasted all of that money, because by yourself, with the lack of experience, you won't be able to synergize them, you won't be able to make the call how to set it up, how it will work. And the bad audio salesman is the one, which means I would call the evil audio salesman, who takes all the time to set it up, and then will sell you the component, and he won't even set it up for you, or he won't even ask you what other components you have. He will just want to sell you the most expensive part that you can afford, or maybe you can't afford it, but he will make sure you are so damn impressed that you will buy that component. So that's why like audio is really, really hard thing. So, oh yeah, Nick, what brass packs sound much better on guitars. I use them on my acoustic. So even like these tiny pieces, these tiny parts. Thank you, Nick, for this wonderful comment. Yeah, so I think that's where I started circling this thing with the screws on the Voigt pipes, and not just Voigt pipes, any speakers, is that if these things in music instruments make so much difference. But you see, even on guitars, because some of the comments might have been, okay, brass, but what instrument does use brass? Okay, I can understand that maybe like a brass horn, it uses brass, but in a guitar there's no brass. But yeah, there can be brass even, and you don't need to have like a ton of brass in an instrument. Even just like those few grams of that tiny brass peg will make a noticeable difference. Spruce top, rosewood bridge. Ooh, kind of, you know, like you are mentioning like treats for the cats. They go like go in a frenzy. Their tails go like Kintaro. At the end of his tails just start twitching when I mention him the secret magic word. So for me, it's kind of like spruce top, rosewood bridge, and brass peg. I was going like that, like the cats. And Peter is asking, hi János, I have implemented diode tweak and it worked like a charm. Any other suggestions for improvement of amps, power supplies? I would say, Right now, I don't really want to go into what the diode tweak is, because that would just take away a whole lot of time. I would not just mention power supply tweaks. One of the ones is that I think this is maybe like a basics, that how to design a power supply correctly, is that to have the capacitances increase. So right after your rectifier, have the lowest capacitance, and keep the capacitance low. And then as you go through the filter stages, bigger and bigger and bigger stages, because a bigger stage, it fills up faster, it grabs more. It's kind of like you have a bigger sumo wrestler, he will wrestle the smaller sumo guy, and you want the big wrestler at the where your tubes will need the power. You want the biggest sumo wrestler providing the work, the whole for the team, and you don't want the biggest sumo wrestler in the front, because there's the next sumo wrestler. So like the next filter capacitor is like the next sumo wrestler, and they wrestle for the energy, and the big guy always pulls the energy from the small guy. So if the first filter capacitor is the biggest one, then he will wrestle it from where the power is needed. And that's what we see in a lot of equipment, commercial equipment, that they just put a massive capacitance right after the rectifier. And they do that because the bigger the capacitance, the better the filtering, the lower the hum levels, and you can get by of skipping in the power supply, so that you can skip the choke for, let's say, for push-pull amplifiers. So they just put like 1000 microfarads right after the rectifier, and then you have your push-pull stage feeding right from there. But this is a pretty terrible thing, really, putting huge capacitance in the front, because after that they put like a little bit of resistance and maybe like a 200 microfarad feeding the input stage. That's a recipe for failure, recipe for starved input stage. Yeah, you get beef for the power tube, but your input stage is totally starved. Flip it over, so your input stage has more capacitance than than from where your power stage is getting the supply from. And now one thing that a little tweak that we can use, I think this will be like a practical tweak that most people can use for their push-pull tube amplifiers. And this is the thing that I love to do on Quicksilvers, is that because for Quicksilver they have like really high input capacitances, like a 500 microfarad, and but that's really hard on both the rectifier tubes and the power transformer. Anyway, the power transformer of Quicksilver can handle it. Make no mistake with that. And also they are using, or they have been using, the NOS 5AR4 US NOS 5AR4 tubes for rectifier, and they can handle that massive overcapacitance. So there's a pair of 5AR4s with the plates parallel for each, and they can handle that 500 microfarad capacitance load. And I've seen like 20-year-old rectifier tubes handling that monster load. Try a modern production, new production 5AR4, put in there, and probably in a week it will go up in flames. Maybe as I'm getting feedback, the modern production tubes are getting much better than they were 10-15 years ago, but I do not have much hope. I would warmly, strongly recommend putting any modern production tube for up to a 500 microfarad capacitance as the input capacitance. But even for these 5AR4s in the Quicksilver, you can tremendously improve the sound by adding a much smaller capacitor, let's say a 40 microfarad capacitor and a 60 ohm resistor, and and use that 40 microfarad capacitor as the input capacitor, and then just a small resistor and feed the 500 microfarad stage from there, you will have a much more spacious, lush, and more organic sound that way, and stress out the tubes and the transformer less. So actually you will have less transformer ringing when you do that. It will be still even noticeable even with the Quicksilver, or even though it was designed to be able to handle that load, both in the vacuum tube selection and also the power transformer design. But in 90+% of the commercial push-pull amplifiers, where they just copy that mindset, then try to do it on a budget, then the power transformer is massively inadequate for that, and it's ringing like hell for that crazy current draw. Because the bigger your input capacitance, the higher the current draw, but the current will be drawn during a shorter duty cycle at each cycle. And when you lower the input capacitance, the duty cycle where the supply is charging will be much wider, so you will have a much more even feeling of your capacitances, of your supply bank. And now I have to do a little break, and I'll be back in a minute or so. And I'm just calling it a little break time, and we'll be okay. I'm back. A little break over, almost over. Oh, and I need a lapel mic. I didn't put it back. So another benefit of adding a smaller capacitor as the input capacitor is that it will little bit drop the input voltage as well. And if you have an older amplifier, an older tube amp that was made for like 115 volts input and not the 120 that we have here, at least here in the United States, but that's true everywhere in the world, we are upping the input voltages. So the input voltages are like 5% or even higher than 5% more or even higher than they were like 40-50 years ago, where a lot of the vintage tube gear were made, that if you want to use them today, they will be overstressed by this excess in input voltage. And in that case, when you add that additional input capacitor in front of the big capacitor, then by going even lower capacitances, you can drop the B plus a little bit, so that can help to compensate. And actually, if you have space, just put in a small choke. For push-pull amplifiers, you don't have place for a really big choke, but you can get like a compact small Hammond choke that is like 0.3 Henrys, and it's like 5.5 amp rated, so you can get like something that can even feed really high current push-pull amps, and it's like really cheap and really small, like this tiny box, tiny cube. Like, do I have something here about that size? Not really. But about this size, like your fist, about that size. Actually, smaller, half the size of my fist. And if you have a big fist, maybe a third of the size or even smaller. And if there's space in the chassis, you can put it in there and just add like a pipe filter in front of that massive reservoir, and even though, as the general wisdom goes, that push-pull amps do not need excessive filtering, you can get fine if you have like a 1 volt hum, basically 1 volt ripple on your B plus, because the push-pull pair will cancel it out, and whatever is left with the negative feedback, we can take care of it. But what I have noticed is that for my Ampexes, when I beefed up the power supply, so instead of the original 40 microfarads feeding the output stage in a push-pull configuration, I changed it to 140 microfarad for the main reservoir stage, and I have a 12 microfarad for the first input cap. So 12. Initially I had 40, 100, and then I changed this, I dropped the 40 to 12. And I changed, like it was 40, 50 ohms, 100, that was the initial one, and even that was a huge, massive step up from the original 40. Huge. The noise floor, the hum level just massively plummeted compared to the original. Now I don't need the negative feedback to keep the hum in control. Even without any feedback, there is no hum at all from the amplifier. It's dead quiet, and is just massively better in its ability to portray very low level, very fine level information. Because don't forget, when we have a hum that we are getting rid of with the feedback, that hum will also get mixed up by that approximately low level signal that we are feeding, and it all gets smashed up. It's kind of like putting into a trash compactor, and it will all get fizzled out. And when you don't have that low level hum, then it's kind of like lightening up that duty, so there's no it's kind of like it acts more like a solvent. So if you add a hard solvent to a mix of your food, then it's just going to melt it away. And if you don't add the solvent, then you can taste the food. So that's kind of like my analogy of the power supply ripple in the system. And when you have a single-ended amplifier, one of the reasons why they are so good, so emotional, they have such a plus in their ability to portray. Oh, I think I have to control this light here. Let me get the remote for the curtains. Okay, and I also have, oops, it's going the other way. And I also have Machi here. Hey, look at that. We are taking care of that really bad hard light. What is happening? What is happening here? And there's a little bit of light left, which is fine. We need some light. See, there's Machi. So this is what Zoom meetings and live streams are all about, and the internet was an invention that the cats put in the human's brain. So where was I? Let me see, where was I? I think I reload again my YouTube here because it is lagging. So let's see in the comments. So so I was talking about power supplies, right? And speeding them up. Oh, the single-ended thing, yes. So actually for the single-ended amplifiers, you need to keep the ripple down because otherwise it will hum. So in that case, you have no choice but to keep the ripple down. So it means that whatever low-level signals are there are not going to be affected by the ripple. But in a push-pull amplifier, you are not forced to it. So there, this ripple component will have problems, especially when used with feedback. If it's that big, then it's going to really alter the microstructure, the really fine details, the phasing, and it's not like it's completely destroying the material because you can measure it. It's still audible. It's still there on a scope, but it's just changing the phase a little bit, changing the timing a little bit, changing the shape a little bit, and that's enough that the emotional content of a music, of the sound, is gone. So what I noticed that to keep the sound, the emotionality intact in a system, you really need to have the low-level details under control. And I need to have the lighting under control. Is it kind of better, right? Maybe like this. Something like that. Yeah, what she said. You heard that? She said it's better. Is it better? I think it's better. Haha. Hey, that's awesome. So I think that's about these push-pull amps. So let's go back to the chat. Why does active preamplification often sound better versus DAC straight into a power amp or a power amp using just a pot or volume? It's because the active preamps, they are negotiators. So the preamp's duty is just to select between sources, of course, and adjust the volume. But when you have an active preamp, that also can have add extra gain. So it acts as a mini amplifier in front of the amplifier. But the most important thing that an active preamp does is impedance matching. And it can provide extra current drive. So when it does better impedance matching than your DAC, that's when it will sound better. And if you just use a pot straight for volume, then because it doesn't have active components, so there won't be any active changes to the sound spectrum, so you won't see any extra harmonic components altered or added or changed with the sound. But what a pot cannot do is that it cannot do impedance matching. So with the pot, your impedance match goes to hell, basically. And as you turn the volume down, it will become almost like a non-negotiable deal for the DAC or your source to drive the pot. And that's why, hi Klaus, greetings to Norway. So okay, Machi also sends his greetings. you saw her wink. That's the cat's way of saying hello, the winking. So when you just have a pot, you need to drive the pot. So that's why there are some really legendary or very coveted preamps like the Marantz preamplifiers. What they did in the high-end Marantzes is that they had a tube driving the pot. So it was not just like in most classical preamplifiers that you have your signal coming in to an RCA jack, selector switch, and the selector switch feeds your volume control, and then the volume control feeds the rest of the circuitry in your preamplifier. But what Marantz did on their higher end models is that they put a tube before the pot. So the tube was driving the pot as a cathode follower, and then it provided really low impedance, high current drive for the pot, and then the negative effects of that pot largely disappeared, because what is that negative effect is, as you turn the volume down, then it becomes harder and harder to get low frequencies out of it. So when you have impedance mismatch, then the low end will start to disappear, and that's where an active preamp can help, is to keep it up. But you need to have an active preamp that does the volume control in a way that it does not ruin the impedance drive, because in many active preamps, even though the output of the preamp is low impedance, but you lose the battle at the volume control, because your CD player or DAC has to drive the interconnect plus the volume control pot, and then that's where it goes to poop. And then even though the output of the preamp can handle the low impedance, but the signal is already degraded. So that's why when nowadays they call it like an input buffer in the preamplifier. So when you are looking, especially like with solid state jargon, or just like a buffer stage, that's the solid state equivalent. That's what it does basically. It allows to the volume controls to be driven with enough current and without the loss of low frequencies. Yes, I am now in the dark. It's so funny. It's like, and it's so now on purpose I have some cracks here, so I don't let the curtains be totally covered, because if I cannot even cover it totally. Machi is here looking into the garden, and there's a big crack over there. But if I cover up everything, these curtains are so good that outside it's like super bright daylight, but it feels like it's nighttime. It's insane. So actually Nelly got these from IKEA, and we don't have IKEA here on the island. I think when he was, where she was? I think San Francisco in a conference. When was that? Like over a year ago? And then she brought these back. She was hunting for them, and they're just excellent. They're amazing. They're like the same type of curtains that you see in the movie theaters, and perfect. So, and we also put up railings for them, and remote, so that I can just push the button and they first it was really like, watch the cats, what they do, and the curtains move by themselves. They were, oh, big eyes, what's happening? Now they kind of got used to it, but it's still fun to watch them whenever the curtains move. So anyway, these curtains are tremendously good. They also act a little bit as noise insulation as well, noise isolation, cut down the sounds a little bit. They also cut down the heat a lot, although I have like really dark tint on the glass here, otherwise the room would get pretty hot here. So here in Hawaii, if you don't have tint on your glasses, it's just end of the world. You can't do that. And one more thing, that there's like so much UV from outside, that for example I have upstairs, I have the AO speakers with those old vintage paper cones, and the cone that's closer to the window, I already see heavy signs of UV damage on it. And the speakers were out in the room for about a year or so, and I have super heavy tint on the window upstairs, and even through that heavy tint, enough UV gets in that I see the paper changing color, fading. I will make a video on that, how you can spot that. But these are like, how old? 50 years old drivers, and then I use them in rooms for 2 decades without, but there were no no windows around, so they were really secluded and they didn't get any UV. And now they are next to the window, even though heavy tint, curtains are often drawn so the cats can watch out, but even that's enough for enough UV to come in to kill your speaker, to kill your drivers. And yeah, so now I'm in the dark, but hopefully it's visible. Just let me know if picture is not visible and I crank it up higher. Hi Klaus, greetings from Norway. That's awesome. I love Norway. I haven't been to that part of the world yet, but since a kid I always wanted to go. The fjords, just so beautiful. And oh, there is a series on Netflix called Ragnarok, and it plays in Norway. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's just fantastic. So I can recommend it to everyone. Watch Ragnarok. I just watched it, a new series the fresh series, and the last one, sadly, the final series came out. So we rewatched the whole thing with Nelly. And by the way, it has amazing sound. It's just like, wow, fantastic. So like listening to it is a major treat. So if you are into watching movies with high quality system and not just listening to music, Ragnarok, go for Ragnarok. Beautiful, it's just fantastic. And it plays in Edda. I think it probably there must be a real place called Edda, or maybe they just created it. I don't know for the series, but I think it's gorgeous. It's beautiful, by the way. Anyone watching from the UK? Alphabet G33K is asking. Yes, actually, Ray is from the UK. He's up above Northern Wales. So, Human is asking, János, all things being equal, is there a generic statement that can be made between traditional driver, Alnico, or other versus field coil? So, the field coil is the most optimal because that provides the same type of magnetic field as the voice coil does. So when we need the magnet in a driver to create a magnetic background against which the voice coil can work. And that the type of the magnetic field, I think we understand only very little of magnetism today. There's a whole lot more to know about magnetism that we don't know. But it is already evident that different materials provide different kinds of magnetic fields that have different parameters, different properties. And the field coil is actually the same thing as a voice coil, just many more coils. And it's creating the same type of electromagnetic field and provides the most optimal environment for the coil to work in. And I think Alnico is something that is I found that Alnico is not, so using Alnico is not a recipe for success. So it doesn't mean that if you have an Alnico driver it will be better than a non-Alnico driver. It just depends on so much more. But I found that with Alnico I can build a system that goes incredibly deep with emotionality. And with field coil, you can go even deeper with that, I think. But I unfortunately don't have much experience personally with field coil, as I don't have any field coil drivers, sadly. And for one reason is that they add a lot to the complexity of the system, and to get them to work at their potential, you need an amplifier for the field coil, a power supply to feed the field coil, which is essentially an amplifier. And that amplifier to feed the feed coil must be of the same quality as your amplifiers, and it will likely be of the same size and same cost, if not more. And if you skip on that and if you use something easy, something cheap, then you will be depriving yourself of most of the benefits that field coils can provide. And I think to me, to get like a sound that I connect to at an emotional level, that allows me to open the creative part of my brain, the creative part of my being to bring healing, the best I found is Alnico, provided that I decided not to go to field coil for reasons of cost, extra space that the field coil power supply takes, and the complexity. And so if we think about practicality and for performance, cost, everything put together, Alnico is a reasonable choice. And also there's like really few field coil drivers, and they're really expensive and hard to play around. Actually, not hard to play around with, just hard to get to. But once you have them, then probably you will never go back to anything else. And Alnico has such a beautiful classic sound. Thank you, Nick. and it is just it's really a joy to live with. And oh, bye, Gerard. So he has to go. It's really late in Hamburg already. Yeah, thank you for tuning in so late from Germany. And Gerard, he's fantastic. He has a really beautiful system. He also built the Lagrange, and he used the Sonido drivers, and those are Alnico drivers, and he can really second that was a huge step up from stepping up the ferrite drivers that he was using first. In the Lagrange. So he built the Lagrange first with the Fostex ferrite driver, and then upgraded to the Sonidos. So bye, Gerard. Gute Nacht. Okay. TJ asked, what's up, we are still live? Hey, hi TJ. Yes, we are still live. What time is it? Wow, it's 10 o'clock already. Okay, I think this is a pretty long live session, and longest so far. And yeah. And John is asking, do you have experience with the 288 Alnico versus ferrite? I would say that the ferrites have more high energy, so that the frequency spectrum is different. So the Alnico versions have fuller mid-range, more beautiful mid-range, and the ferrites have more aggressive top end. So if someone has already a little bit compromised hearing, so Ray, for example, for you, the ferrite would work better, because if your hearing starts to taper off at 8 kilohertz, you need more energy pushed in that high frequency range, and then you will enjoy it better. Provided first you go through protecting your hearing, have a period of rest for your ears recover, and then next step is think about the driver choices, speaker choices. And then in this case I would go with the ferrite driver, because it naturally balances towards the high end of the spectrum, and that is what we need when we need a little bit more high frequencies, because it's easier to get the mid-range out of a 288. It has so much more extra sensitivity compared to the woofer that we have no problem leveling the mid-range to the woofer, but that extra energy in the highs will give us more to have opportunity to dial in more of the higher frequency, like that 10 kilohertz plus range. So even if we cut it at 14 kilohertz and use a second compression driver on top, even then that 10 to 14 kilohertz range with the ferrite driver will sound more prominent, will dominate over the mid-range. And when we have the Alnico driver, then the center of the attention is the mid-range. And it depends on the listening preferences. What is it that you really want? If you want to focus on the mid-range, that's the most for you, just singing, vocals, emotionality, then go with the Alnico. If you want a more showy sound, like the biggest show, the ferrite will give you bigger show. Or if you have hearing issues, then the ferrite will give you that compensation. TJ said, my Dynaudio tweeter uses ferrite mags, review drops tomorrow. And actually Dynaudio have good stuff, and they are nicely tweakable. But don't worry about it, because most speakers use ferrite drivers. Most tweeters, most woofers, and nowadays they use neodymium. So I would say that neodymium is even more aggressive than ferrite. So if you have a neodymium tweeter, then you can, it has the potential to be even more edgy than a ferrite magnet, but that's like a really overgeneralization, because if the manufacturer has experience working with neodymium, then they can voice it so it's not harsh and peaky anymore. So for example, I have the Cube Audio drivers, the FC8s, and imagine what? They are ferrite neodymium hybrid drivers. So now that's something that's truly bonkers, because you need really big expertise to combine two different types of magnets, because ordinarily when you combine different magnets, they demagnetize each other. So the stronger one hurts the weaker magnet, and to create a magnetic loop, a good magnetic circuit with multiple magnet types, that's really quite a feat, and they pulled it off phenomenally. That those drivers have a really wonderful balance. Yes, they sound radically different from my Alnicos, but they really a joy to listen to. And I really love the way they sound. So now I have the this Alnico type sound here in my living room, and upstairs in the cat's room I have the Voigt pipes with the Cube Audio drivers set up, and they sound really beautiful and really fantastic. And when I brought down the Cube Audio FC8 Voigt pipes and listened to in this system, and then I had friends over, and they could tell that it still gave like such deep emotionality that that they said that was the biggest emotional impact they heard from a stereo system. So actually, I just saw Nick's question coming up. Didn't a bunch of audio lovers start Cube Audio? Yes. So Grzegorz and his team in Cube Audio, they are really hardcore audio enthusiasts. They started out as DIYers, and then they decided, like, how can we tweak these drivers more? What can be done? And to their credit, really, like the FC8 and the other drivers, they have a lot of things in them that I myself would have implemented have I gone that route to create a driver. And then they also did different things as well, and different things, but overall they did a tremendously phenomenal jobs. And the Cube Audio FC8 is a phenomenal driver for Voigt pipes. And as we knew, as we learned from experience, is that the 10-inch the 10-inch driver is also works fabulously in Voigt pipe application, and the significant others have confirmed that as well. And Yanis is asking, Yanis, are you from Greece? Actually, he has the same name as me. So Janos means Yanis. and it means John. So it's easier. João. You seem to enjoy wide buffer speakers. How about Voigt pipes? They seem pretty slim. So actually for the Voigt pipes, I did play around with them, and if I widen the buffer, it's a big improvement. So they are slim because oh, you come from the land of Vangelis, and for Voigt pipes you need the narrowness for the pipe, because if we make it really wide, it's not a pipe anymore. And for the Voigt pipe to work optimally, the width of the pipe needs to be the same width as the cone, as the driver cone. So if the driver cone is tiny and your pipe is this wide, then the pipe effect won't be as good. It needs to be the same width as the internals to move all the air in a column. So if it's much smaller, then it becomes a radiation, and it's not a perfect column moving up and down anymore, but it's kind of like energy is losing by those bouncing around, by those bounciness. But if the whole width of the column moves, then the whole width of the column moves. So that's the secret of the Voigt pipes, and that's why you cannot make the Voigt pipe wider than the driver cone, or significantly wider. It will be a tiny bit wider because you lose some area of your basket, but just try to make it as wide as possible. And however, what you can do is add wings around it. And when you add wings, that really helps with the upper bass, mid bass clarity. It will be quite a bit better, but it will look maybe a little bit wonky, a little bit funny, and you might find ways how to attach it to the speaker, but you don't need anything big, even if it's just like 10 centimeters, 4 inches, just like a circular thing, or give it any shape you want, just the same plane as the front of the speaker, add it, and in those cases where the pipe doesn't work, it will make it work. If you have problems with unevenness in the mid-range, it will take care of it. So if you find that with your Voigt pipe, it's too much, like that 2 kilohertz to 5 kilohertz is dominating the sound, then add that little wings, and that will mitigate that problem a lot. But in some rooms, they work even without these wings. So for example, upstairs, it works perfectly like that. So there I don't need it. But when you need it, then those increasing the baffle would be really good. And also, I think even in my case, increasing the front of the baffle, so which would pretty mean kind of like turning the Voigt pipe into a Voigt pipe / open baffle speaker, to have like a really wide front, a panel like an open baffle. But instead of having it fire to the air, it fires into the Voigt pipe in the rear, and it has the mouth to the front on the bottom. I think that would be the most optimal solution. The only problem, my only problem with that would be visually tremendous and take up a lot of space, and it won't work in my room. It would block most of the rooms completely. But if you do have the space for it and you can, then just have a giant board, like a giant open baffle, and put a Voigt pipe in it, basically. I think probably that would have the best sound. Yeah, so for Yannis, I was just so devastated recently when Vangelis passed away. He has been my all-time favorite, I'm not say musician, but inspiration. And he was the same in the music world as I am in the audio world. Well, not the same. He was at, I think, at a much higher level. I'm just, fiddling around with stuff, but we had the same approach, that Vangelis could express the soul of music. He was probably an as talented musician as Mozart was in his time. And he was making like all of his recordings live, and he was playing all of the instruments. There are sometimes like guest players that are playing an instrument, but he was like playing all the keys, doing everything real time, and uh, and and of course he prepared a lot of the effects. Like he spent like years preparing like what will sound the way he wants to sound, how the voices, everything, melodies. But what he did is he did all of his recordings with a single take, from beginning to finish, single take. And the most important thing, he was not an officially trained musician. So his parents started him to learn in school, but when he was learning piano, he was never reading the sheets. He just refused to do that. And he played music after hearing. So he heard the teacher play it, and then he played it. And he had the sheet in front of him, but he was just, looking at it, but not playing from it. He didn't know how to play from sheet music. But whatever he heard, like you sang a tune and he could play it on the piano, or play it on drums or whatnot. So he was flowing, living with music, and not in tune with how we calcify, how we ossify it, how we condense it, how we limit it to a format that we can transmit the basics from one person to another, because that's what sheet music is, that we are condensing music so that one person who came up with the inspiration translates it into that scale, that frame, and another person can play it. But as you know, even in classical music, what is the number one biggest thing in classical music? It's interpretation. So all the conductors, all the musicians playing the same score, and it sounds wildly different. Effect on you is wildly different. You can play, like, for example, you listen to maybe, let's say, like a Beethoven symphony, conducted by two different conductors, like Carl Böhm and Karajan, and you would think you listen to a completely different piece, even though the sheet they're playing from is exactly the same. And that's why, because the sheet doesn't tell everything. It's really in here, and the music has so much more than just those numbers that we crunch it to, because the sheet are numbers. Music is pure mathematics. So the way it is taught, the way it is interpreted, and how we learn it, how we teach it, is 100% pure mathematics. And the best musicians are mathematicians. So for example, my friend Tájtos, who is an astonishing guitarist, and he plays saxophone, flute, piano, violin, and not just the regular violin, but the Hungarian Primas violin playing style, which is it's like a completely different violin, completely different instrument. And if you ask like famous violinists play Hungarian style, they can't, because it's so different. But he can do that. He can play shakuhachi. He built his shakuhachi. He built his Indian flute. What else? And there's probably like a million other instruments he can play. Oh, he's a master of charod and sitar. Add that to the list. And at such a level that even like sitar players and musicians of India consider him as a respectable Indian interpreter. And that's something that is rare, because to understand sitar and charod and Indian music, it requires such a deep level of understanding of music. If you just want to okay, I learn it, you can't. You need like 10 years just to learn the very basics. And why I'm saying that? Because there's this incredibly exceptional musician, and by the way, when he learned playing saxophone, when he was house sitting for one of his co-workers when he was traveling to Germany, that co-worker had a saxophone. And he was house sitting for a couple of weeks, and he just picked it up. In a couple of weeks, he learned to play saxophone in a professional level. so that's kind of the level of his genius. And why I'm saying that? It's because he is an astrophysicist. So basically, he's a mathematician. He's a computer programmer. He writes codes. He can write code for satellites and all kinds of things. And it's likely that he's going to get a Nobel Prize. So he's that kind of brilliant. So he's in the line for that. And he is just an excellent musician. My own grandfather, he was an engineer, he was an excellent mathematician, and he was also an excellent musician. So, and I'm noticing this, that everyone who has a mathematical brain, they are really amazing musicians. That's what you need. So to be a musician, you have to be a mathematician at heart. And it's much more complex mathematics than just notes on a sheet. And I'm saying that because Vangelis was this type of musician who had all of this in him and could translate it. And he said that his big advantage was that that he didn't go to school. Because when you go to school, it's really helpful if you don't know about mathematics, if you don't know about music, you can't translate music, then they will teach you step by step how to do it. But to do that, they have to impose severe limitations on you to learn. But the problem is that when you learn, after a point, you cannot go further because you have these ingrained limitations. And I have a personal story from my grandfather. Actually, I heard it from my father. And I was really wondering that how come that my grandpa was such an outstanding musician and that my father doesn't do any music, doesn't play any music instrument. And actually later on, when I was in my 20s, that was the first time I learned that my father can play the guitar. And that was because I was in college in the dorm, and my roommate was learning how to play guitar, and he was atrocious at it. And then my dad came visiting, and he saw his guitar. Oh, you have a guitar? And he picked it up and played. And like, what fudge? Dad, you can play guitar? What's happening? And he played like a pro guitar player. Like, what on earth? This is nuts. And it turned out, and then later asked him, like, that's what this thing. And he said, like, well, I just picked up the guitar when I was going to university and played, just taught myself a little bit. And when I was done with university, life happened, you were born. I gave my guitar to my sister because she wanted to learn guitar, and then that's it, that took care of it. And then the guitar was never mentioned again, imagine. But I said, but how come grandpa didn't teach you? Like you said that you learned by yourself, but you had grandpa, he's like the musician of the century, and why didn't you learn from him? He said, the reason because when I was a young kid, that's when I told grandpa that I want to play the guitar. And then he gave a guitar into my hand and he said, okay, play. And I'm singing this tune, play it on the guitar. He said, what? I can't do that. This is the first time I have a guitar in my hand. I'll figure it out. I'm just singing this tune, and you just play around a little bit with the notes and just play along. Not perfect, fine, but just play the tune on the guitar. And he couldn't do it. And my grandpa said, well, son, you shouldn't be a musician. You don't have the talent. Put the instrument down. Focus on just learning mathematics and whatever you want to do in your life. and that was it. And then my dad became like an excellent mathematician. He was teaching mathematics in university and math and population genetics. But and then later on he also learned just to play by himself to a level that is just extremely impressive to anyone who is not a musician. I think even to an average musician. But to my grandpa, that was the hallmark of talent. that you grab an unknown instrument, and even without any training, you are able to play. So you have music living in you and you express it. That's a musician. And that is what Vangelis was. And that's what we don't see nowadays. And I think once you interpret, once you play in a band, there is not that much pressure for that, because it's a benefit if you can read sheet music. You can prepare easier for the gigs. But once you are a composer, then I think this is the prime requisite to compose music that really touches deep, touches down the soul. And Vangelis was the grandmaster of that. And the way he created this music is the way I create my audio gear, and what I do with my audio gear is, I think I gone to the dark side in a way that I also learn a lot about the technicalities, about how equipment works, because I think otherwise you can't build a tube amplifier if you don't know how to calculate like power supplies or how to calculate loads, etc. But I did not go to university to have a degree, and did not get those concepts that apply to stereo, that apply to music, from a square box. I got those concepts from my mentor. And actually he had formal education. In university he did learn courses about audio electronics, but he was also like really experimental, and he just never adhered to any of the limitations. He was pushing every single limit for every single rule that he learned, and he found the cracks, and he found where he could go beyond, and what is it that you can push. And for me, so if we compare my audio education, I did not, if like you want to be an astronaut, then how you do is you go to school, and then you go to one school to another, and you advance like that. So for me, my schooling was not really done in a school. It was kind of like go in the International Space Station and spend a decade there. And that's how I picked it up, by doing things instead of preparing for it, because I had my mentor, my guide, whom I regard as kind of like living in the International Space Station, was that kind of deep immersion, learning from him, because he did not teach me the fossilized material and go like, you know, baby steps one by one, but he let me discover all of these fossils by myself, and he pointed, here are the cracks, János, and don't take anything for granted, because those are just condensations, projections of how reality works, but it's not the totality, that's just an aspect. So if we go for a health analogy, like in the medical field, it's like when you're a doctor and you're treating a patient, you cannot just do what most engineers do in audio, like take blood pressure, make a CVC lab test, and measure calcium levels, or do an EKG, and a few more like baseline tests, and based on that try to cure the patient. That's not enough. You have to go deeper than that and look at the patient in front of you. And good doctors, good physicians, they diagnose through a way deeper attitude and perception than just, okay, I measured his lab test, his weight, I mean his heart rate, the weight, and cough. Okay, and then you give you like a algopirin or whatnot. You give Tylenol, go home, and you know you'll be better in a week. But go much deeper than that to be successful. And now we are getting better and better tools, so it's becoming more and more elaborate. Like we can do DNA tests that tells us a whole lot more better. So with your genetic makeup, we will be able to tell what are your enzymes where your body is deficient with, what are the processes which are specific for you, and we don't see it in the generic population where we have to customize the treatment, but even we need to go further than that, beyond that, for a physician to be a successful physician. And that's how I approach audio and designing gear, is that I don't just look at it like from a standpoint where an average audiophile, I mean, now I don't even mean average in a bad way, like take 1,000 person and 1,000 would go that way. I mean that under average. Of those who are brave enough to tread that rare path. Because let's be honest, those of us who go into DIY audio and start designing or modifying our gear, we are just the absolute minority, a sliver of all of people who are audiophiles. And how we do is that we gather the experiences of people around us. And when you gather the experiences, then what it is that if you want to build the system that has the deepest emotionality, the most natural, most involving experience, then you have to go with a direct heated triode single-ended amplifier and using one of the most famous DHT tubes, such as the 300B, 45, 2A3, 100TH, 845, 211, or if you are more adventurous, like the 211, 845 of course are for the more adventurous, you can go for like type 10 and family, or 50 Edward or 46, 47. These are like more unknown territories. Even the 100TH is just a really uncharted territory for most. But that's something that you would think that I have to go that way to get the most out of it. Not the most, but what I want for myself. And you have to go for the best build output transformer, and then it will become like a really, really expensive and long path and involved path. And what I noticed that I've gone on a very different route. So first, I wanted to go this way, but I quickly realized, number one, I cannot afford good quality output transformers. This was 20 years ago. I had the minimal budget. So I just have to go on a different path and build something that I can afford. And I started based on that, started putting all the conventional wisdom, all my mentors' wisdom, and then after a while I realized that all my successes came when I made a really significant step, a really significant leap, discovery, when I allowed my intuition to take the lead. So what I did is I collected all the knowledge, all the relevant facts, described all my options, what I can do, all my choices. What are the ones that are affordable for me? What are the ones that I can technically need to do something? And then I just did not just choose based on just pure rationale, which is the one I should build, but I went after my intuition, which feels right given my room, my system, what I want. And it's been so many times that when I chose something rationally and I started building it, and I grabbed the capacitor I was about to solder in, and my hand stopped. What's happening? Why? And I felt that it's wrong to put it in there. And these are the moments when I stop and reflect on it. Why is my subconscious stopping me from going that route? And once I figured out to work with my subconscious, that's when what I've been doing became a whole lot better. Because no matter how smart we think, and I think I'm okay, but I'm not anything special, but the collective intelligence of mankind, and also what you hear, what you read, is so much more than what you consciously carry about in your head. And consciously, we are aware of only a fraction of it, but subconsciously are always aware of everything. And it's just a matter of fine-tuning your habits to allow your subconscious to lead your developments, to lead the projects. And that's how I could really catapult myself from the slave path. And I mean slave because you are slaved to go through mediocre, minor progressions once you make each leap in your audio journey. If you listen to your subconscious, you can create the synergy, because all of these things like quality of output transformer, DHT versus IDHT, do I use silver or copper, all of these things, vinyl or analog, these are just parts of the puzzle. But the success is when you put the puzzle together. And if you put the puzzle together from lower pieces, then it will be still a whole picture. And you can have a higher pieces and you can have like puzzles misplaced or missing, and then it will not be, you won't have that synergistic result. And that's why I am just incredibly happy with the Ampex, which is like a push-pull amplifier, with vintage transformers, using a pentode as a driver, using basically the pentodes as power tubes, and in triode mode, and it's nothing like a direct heated system, not single-ended. I don't have the latest greatest amorphous core or nickel core or whatever core output transformers, and it still gave me experiences that I think they were so far outside the realm of what I thought is possible from audio, or from experiencing music, that I'm just shocked and stunned. Of course, it doesn't always sound that way, and it's also a dialogue between you and the audio gear, because the audio gear is just translating the music for you. It's up to you whether you can receive it or not. If you block yourself from it, you will never experience it. So if you come from that attitude that you don't want to connect with music at all on an emotional level, and you are extremely biased against some kind of equipment, when you listen to it, your assumptions will prove you right, because you are blocking yourself from experiencing it, and your brain will be on the A/B mode, focusing on the shortcomings of what you are hearing, and you won't allow the benefits to affect you. And the secret of enjoying music, and it doesn't matter solid state, high feedback, no feedback, whatever, is that you are not in a critical mind. You just sit back, listen, and just enjoy the music. Don't try to listen to the stereo gear. Listen to the music, and that's when it will work. To me, that's when it's successful and fantastic. And a real doctor doesn't need labs and x-rays to make a diagnosis. 90% of the time, a good history from the patient is sufficient. Yes, that's such an observation, and that's what I had with my physicians. You know, when I have something, I go to a doctor, of course. And that's what I noticed, that those physicians, only those rely heavily on labs who are not good doctors, because and then especially when you have a new physician, that's when the new physician like gets you a total checkup, thorough checkup, get all the tests, and then a year later, maybe just a couple new checks, and then a couple years later, just the bare minimum if you need something. But I just had a couple legendary doctors, like when I was a kid, my physician was just phenomenal. He just looked at me, he immediately knew what to do. Insane. And actually, when I grew up and I became a research doctor myself, I had a chat with him, and he said that, János, the thing is that with kids is easy, because I see it, I look at them and I see what's wrong with them. By the time we grow up, when we are adults, there's so many things going wrong in the body, and so many things we are doing to ourselves that you can't diagnose the person fully and correctly. Nevertheless, he still stayed as my physician. Even when I was an adult, I still chose him, and he was by far the best doctors, even as an adult, that I had. But also here recently, I just had my primary care physician. He's an old Chinese-born doctor, and it was, I had just amazing experiences with him. And actually now my pre-CP and primary care is his daughter. so now that he got really old, I transferred to his daughter, and she's awesome too. And we had a really funny story. I just want to share it just to show like what a good doctor is that Nelly had something, and we went to the doctor, to him, to check her out, and I think it was with her allergy. Actually, it turns out he's allergic to cats. How's that? And she went there for the allergy test, and I went with her, and while we were there, I just coughed. And then he stopped right away. He looked at me, and he started checking me out. And the thing is that, you know, in the United States, it's really strict. So if you need to have an appointment and everything and all, and that's it. And I didn't have an appointment. I just there accompanying Nelly, and I just called, and he looked at me, and he asked me questions, and then he just asked me to hold out my hand, and he, you know, he placed his fingers like here in this way. And that's Chinese medicine, like testing your pulse. And then he said, yeah, that you have a problem with your stomach. Then take omeprazole. He prescribed me omeprazole, because before I told him that I have all kind of symptoms and this and that whatnot. And then he said, no, that's not your problem. Your stomach is your problem. And that was true. I took omeprazole for a week and it went down. And that was it. so that's what a good doctor is, and that's what happens in audio as well. And that's why, like, I have all these comments like, Janos, have you done a spectrum analysis, and did you measure it? Was it DHD? You need to bring out the oscilloscope. No, you don't. You just listen to it, hear it, and you know what's wrong with it when you have the experience. And when you don't have the experience, that's when you have to bring out all of those gizmos to find out what's wrong. But if you rely exclusively on the gizmos to fix stuff, then you are just putting on band-aids, one band-aid after the band-aid, because you don't really know what is creating the synergy, what is happening there. Yeah, I have two oscilloscopes, and if I count I have an oscilloscope app on the phone too, and on my iPad, so I have 4 oscilloscopes, but I don't use them to validate what I'm hearing, and I don't use them to tweak the sound based on what the computer says. Always computer says no, you know, Little Britain. But I use them that in case like something goes wrong, or what I can do, or just like as a help. I always use it as a fixing tool, the oscilloscope and the measurement. If something went wrong, that's when I bring them up to find out what exactly went wrong. But voicing, 100% ears. Because if you use something other than your ears, then you are cheating, you're shortchanging yourself. And the most thing you are shortchanging, I'm not saying you can't have good results by relying on measurement setup, but what you are really, really shortchanging yourself is yourself, because you are missing out the opportunity to develop yourself, to develop your skills, because if you have the skills to analyze and set up your audio gear, you also have the skills to have that kind of information grab from the music. It means that you are so much more aware and present of what's happening around you in the realm of the sound, because that's what it's all about. And as an audiophile, the most important upgrade to ever have is yourself, is your awareness. And we always make the grave mistake of calling it hearing, improving our hearing. No, our hearing is what it is. And I got into trouble before with one of my videos when I was saying I was improving my hearing. But no, I wasn't improving my hearing. And Stu wasn't improving his hearing. It's just a bloody useless convention that we have an audiophiles, and it took me comments on YouTube to realize that, oh, we have this useless and faulty, defective assumption that we are just improving our hearing, because we're not. Hearing is what it is. We are improving the awareness of what we are hearing. That's the big difference between someone who is a newbie in listening to music or someone who has listened to 100 concerts, is the level of awareness, which is the level of connection to the music. So to be connected to the music, you have to be aware of the music. And once you are there, it becomes very easy to tweak, to tune, and to develop gear for yourself as well. And I think now it's like super duper long. This is, I think, like a record long live stream. Is my camera overheating? Let's see. No, pretty lukewarm, not that bad. Okay. But anyway, I think I'm getting really thirsty now, so it's like time for some serious hydration. And thank you everyone for tuning in. It's just like scrolling back, really wonderful comments. Thank you for such an engaging live stream, and I hope the lights worked out, and my new lens was more usable than my old lens. Actually, I got this lens yesterday, so it's like a totally brand new experience for me as well. This was the big test for it. So thank you, team, and big hello. Bye, Nick, and see you at the next episode that I'm going to make. And just, you know, as a reminder, all of my videos I'm doing are quasi live sessions, because I record them with a single take, and I don't post edit them. If I do some editing, like put in some like blurring when it blurs in the beginning and fades out, or take out some noise, or adjust the level of the volume, if I have time I do that, but I never cut what I said. So from start to finish, I press the button record, and I press the button stop, and you getting unfiltered stuff from me. And there are dangers with that. So if I make some mistakes, or I say yes instead of no, I'm comparing compression drivers versus dome tweeters, and I mix up the two because I'm going back and forth, and once I flip, I don't notice it, it's there. So that's the danger of all of my videos, that there is a lot of bugs in it, a lot of human errors. You are getting 100% human error content in all of my videos. Nothing is censored out. But you are also getting uncensored materials. And but still, I really love these live sessions because there's a much better connection, and the flow is really defined by you. So good night, good morning, wherever you are. We are all over the world. So have a wonderful day, and bye bye. Thank you for being here.